I'm here to warn you about the message that Iran has just sent to the United States of America. In fact, Iran just sent this message within the last hour, and it's a deeply concerning message because literally President Donald Trump and the president of Iran are supposedly in Sweden at the Geneva Convention discussing plans for peace and how they can broker deals for minerals and all of these things, and how they can just come into this instance where they can work together for a peaceful world the way that President Donald Trump wants. But here's the issue. Iran, while all of this is happening, has also decided to go ahead and do missile drills, shooting them into the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if you're unsure what Hormuz is, well, it just supplies 20% of the global oil in the world. And so shooting an airstrike of over 38 missiles and counting into the Strait of Hormuz, which covers 20% of the world's oil in totality, is a big issue. And it's going to be interesting to see what President Donald Trump does after this. And of course, it's going to be interesting to see what the other Western powers do as well. Now, I need you to consider what this means for the world at this point. Remember, President Maduro of Venezuela has already been captured. America now controls Venezuelan oil. Now, America did that probably knowing and assuming what would happen next with Iran within a couple of weeks. And so they're like, hey, we need to control oil supply for our people over here in the Americas. We need to become one America, which is why President Donald Trump also wants to be one with Canada as potentially the 52nd state. And this also means that Europe is going to be chiming in as well. But this could also trigger flight delays in the Middle East. This could send alarm bells off, even with Russia. And so you have to look at the bigger picture here, because something deep down is brewing beneath the scenes. And if you're an expat, this is key for you. This is why we do expat alerts, because you need to understand the territories and the regions throughout the earth that are increasing in warfare power and experiencing an increase in, shall I say, basically a spirit of war that falls across these nations, where they're like, hey, I need to send 38 missiles into the air. And let me be quite honest, President Donald Trump and the US are not innocent of this. They are not exempt from this. They do this as well, literally with the invasion that they did in Venezuela, invading Nigeria recently, and now Iran is fighting back essentially, even though there were indirect talks. I want you to, if you were in school, highlight the word indirect in your mind, okay? Because indirect talks means that potentially both presidents could have been in Geneva, Switzerland, Sweden, whichever one it's in. They could have been in those territories, but they're not talking to each other. They could be communicating digitally, or they could be communicating through a very neutral Sweden, Switzerland. They could be communicating potentially even through a Russia to negotiate. But the US and Iran are not at a place where they can just talk to each other. And so the next question is, does President Donald Trump just sit and do nothing about this? I think that's one case scenario that could happen. Maybe he's just going to be like, yeah, they struck 38 missiles practicing their nuclear warfare into the Strait of Hormuz, which is right by Israel as well. And, we're just going to let that slide while we're supposed to be doing these talks. Or B, President Donald Trump could escalate and say, you know what, I think I'm ready to go into Iran right now. Because again, President Donald Trump has already performed airstrikes on Iran in July 2025. And then in January and December, Iran has been having protests with their Ayatollah, which is their leader. And so the people of Iran want to take that leader out, but they have not been successful necessarily in their protests. And the protests have somewhat went dead. And everybody assumed that President Donald Trump would do something about that, but he did not. And so it's going to be interesting to see if President Trump does something. Now, I'm betting on the fact that he most likely will escalate this in some way or another. I'm not sure if it's going to be him putting airstrikes on Iran, or if he's going to do something further with sanctions, or if he's going to restrict more travel in that area, or what he's going to do. But just remember, last week, the U.S. virtual embassy in Iran, yes, they have a virtual U.S. embassy for the Americans still in that country. They actually sent out a warning telling Americans you need to leave Iran as fast as possible because the Iranians are very hot-headed people. They are very much like, they will let you know. They have signs to say, unalive America. They will taunt President Donald Trump the way that the Ayatollah is right now by having that meeting, and now they have missiles in the air, and so it sends a confusing message. And the world is going to be at chaos once again. I mean, have we ever lost that state of chaos ever since a new administration took over? Or even after 2020, a lot of people have been talking about that as well, how the world seems so much different after 2020. And it's beyond wars and rumors of wars at this point. There are wars and more wars at this point. And so the real question is, are you going to be in America when all of this happens? Are you going to be in South America? Are you going to be in the Middle East? Or do you feel the pull to come more towards the global South where things are a little bit more quiet, where you can just live in an island nation or in a nation in Africa that people don't really think about, like in Eswatini or Botswana or in Namibia, where things aren't as popular or as chaotic as other nations within Africa and the world, where you can kind of coast your way through the end times and find your own type of Goshen. That's what this channel is all about. Now, here's the part that quite honestly just gets a little bit scary. You know, I've seen documentation and news reports that the China naval surveillance system is carrying out heavy surveillance in the area to watch U.S. warships, to watch what they do, to track how they're moving, to track if they're trying to take out the Ayatollah, because China and Iran are like this, okay? And so China will not have the U.S. trying to take out the leader of Iran. And so if President Trump does do something back, which he has been known to do, you know, you don't want to make America look like a punk at this rate, I think China would trigger World War 3.5, because we're already in World War 3. Look at the markets, look at the gold, look at the silver. Everybody knows we are in World War 3. If you're unaware, then you must live under a rock if you did not know that. But I think this could be a real issue here with China, because if China just steps in, they have technology and military advancements like no other place on the earth right now. I mean, they are head to head with the U.S. Russia knows it. South Africa knows it. Iran knows it. North Korea knows it. Everybody knows that China is the real military that could potentially go arm in arm with the U.S. Have you seen their technology recently? If not, you should just pause this video and go look at China's latest technology. It will blow your mind, okay? And the president of China, he's not just going to back down. They are performing surveillance in Iran so that Venezuela 2.0 doesn't happen, because it's okay when it happens in the Americas. We get it. That's the Americas territory and things of that nature. But if it happens to Iran, it's a little bit close to China. And if that were to happen, if China were to strike back in a situation where the U.S. decides to actually strike Iran again, then of course, Taiwan would probably be taken over by China, if not already happening and in the making. And so you should really ask yourself, what is going to come of this? Am I right now in the right location for all of this to be going down? How can I form an escape plan and maneuver through this? Because China, Iran, and the U.S., these are three nations that will not back down from each other. They are going to go head to head, toe to toe, until the last missile is available, which is, again, why I live in the global South. Geographically, certain regions in the global South, like a South Africa, like a Botswana, like a Mauritius, like even if you go to Oceania, New Zealand, these would be some of the last territories that humanity survives if nuclear war were to happen. I don't know. Let me know what you think of this. I think it's a little disturbing how closely China is looking at this, but I also empathize and understand that's what they feel like is their area of the world. They feel like it'll be a little bit too close to home. Obviously, the U.S. is looking for new oil sources. Expect the price of oil to increase. Expect soon gold, silver, and copper to increase as well. They're down 5% today, but just watch tomorrow, because this, my friends, could be the beginning of the next segment of World War III. Shalom, shalom. I'll see you in the next video.